Good morning, everybody. I'm fresh back from Washington, D.C., where I did have a chat with President Trump about one or two things. I'll talk about that over the course of the next hour. And meanwhile, the paper's really dominated today, I would say. I mean, of course, the ongoing row in the Labour Party. But the bigger story, I think, this morning is that the European Research Group, working in conjunction with Nigel Dodds of the DUP, have put forward to Geoffrey Cox, who, remember, is the minister who is going to Brussels to try to get a legal change to the backstop. And they've laid out, these Eurosceptics, the terms they're looking for, and they want a clearly worded, legally binding, treaty-level clause that unambiguously overrides the current text. What they're basically saying is that they need some way that we can get out of the backstop in the future, particularly if we don't manage to have a proper trade deal. So what you've got coming from ERG and DUP, and by the way, this may not be all of the ERG or all of the DUP, but what you've got is an attempt to find a solution. And they're basically saying, and Boris Johnson's been saying much the same thing, they're basically saying, get rid of the backstop and we will back Mrs May's deal. And I think quite significantly, Graham Brady, writing in today's Mail on Sunday, and don't forget, it was his amendment, wasn't it, that passed? It was his amendment that said, get a change to the backstop. And Brady says he feels, in the talks in Brussels, that a breakthrough is near. Now, he may say that. Monsieur Barnier, on Friday, with a German newspaper, said there'd been no forward progress at all, so you pays your money and takes your choice. But he says here, Graham Brady, the Attorney-General needs to give a legally binding guarantee that the backstop is temporary. He goes on to say the whole country is tired of vacillation and delay. Well, he's certainly right about that. And so he's saying, get a change to the backstop, and we, as Eurosceptics, must all rally round and get behind the Prime Minister and support her deal, because at least with that, we leave the European Union and we can move on to the next phase. So I think what we're seeing here is really quite a significant shift in the position of some, not all, of the Eurosceptic members of Parliament. I have to say, the argument that as long as we get rid of the backstop, the rest of the deal's fine, I think's nonsense. What are we paying $39 billion for when we don't even know we're going to get anything back in return in terms of trade? What are we doing to take back our fishing waters? Well, from what I can see, precisely nothing. At what point will we get back control of our borders? Well, I simply don't know. And it seems to me that we are leaving ourselves completely at the mercy of the European Union for however long this transition period lasts. I think, even if there was a legal change to the backstop, I think this withdrawal agreement actually reads a bit more like a surrender document signed by a leader whose nation has just been defeated in war and they've literally got a gun to their head. So I do not think, personally, that Eurosceptics should get behind this deal. I much prefer the idea, with just a few weeks to go, that we leave on WTO terms, and even if there are a few bumps in the road short term, we are out, and probably then actually in a very good position to negotiate a genuine free trade agreement with the European Union. But I know there'll be some that say, Nigel, you're being too much of a purist about this. What's the matter with you? You spent 25 years trying to get us out of the European Union, and here we are with a chance of doing so. Why won't you support it? Well, of course, once Parliament votes on this, and let's say Parliament did agree it would then come to the European Parliament, because that's where the real final vote takes place. And I've got to tell you, right at the moment, I am not going to be supporting this deal. Is now the time for all Eurosceptics to get behind Mrs May's deal? Well, I don't think it is. I don't think this is what we voted for. If you agree with that, please call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think, come on, Nigel, get real. This is the best we could possibly get in the circumstances, in which case text to 84850. And I'm also keen to hear from people who initially thought this deal was an absolute stinker, but have now decided that we need a compromise. Keen to hear from you, and maybe, who knows, you can change my mind. Possibly tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC, at LBC, and of course, you can watch us on Facebook and you can comment there too. Is it time for Tory Eurosceptics to get behind this deal if there's a tweak and a change to the legal position on the backstop. It would appear that many Eurosceptics are going in that direction. I am not. What does Ken from Kingston think? Good morning, Ken.
I think it's a nightmare, Nigel. I think the Remainers should actually accept the status quo, and we've won, and allow the Brexit negotiations to proceed. I mean, you said it many, many times. They're just putting stumbling blocks in our way. Every single way you can go, from Parliament to the papers, everywhere.
Well,
and honestly, one thing I don't understand...
Ken, I think it's worse than that. I think it's worse than that. I actually think, Ken, what they're doing is they are colluding with Monsieur Barnier, Juncker, Tusk, Verhofstadt and all of that crowd. They're colluding with them, and by trying to take the option of no deal off the table, they're wrecking, Ken, our negotiating position.
I know. I mean, who goes into a meeting or a negotiation with your hands tied behind your back? You just don't do it in that way. And no. I'm spitting. Honestly, I'm so mad. I tell you what, I've always voted, Nigel, and if this doesn't go through, I will. The only thing I will do is, like that guy the other day, I'll vote for Mickey Mouse and spoil my paper and hope that somebody suddenly realises, why is this guy spoiling his paper and not voting? If enough of us do it...
A lot of people feel that way. No, Ken, a lot of people feel that way. But on the specifics of this dilemma, and it is a dilemma that the ERG face and of course that the DUP face, on the specifics, if the risk of not accepting her deal, albeit with a tweak or a slight amendment, if the risk is that Article 50 gets extended, is it, for those of us that want to leave the European Union, is it worth taking that risk?
No, I think we should leave on WHO terms, like you suggest. Okay. I mean, I really do. I don't, there's been so much said about this. No one's really investigated and no one really knows, and yet they've blown that particular idea or that avenue out of the water.
But are you prepared, Ken? Are you prepared, in defying this deal, are you prepared to take the risk of extension?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
I really don't think so.
You see, but that's what's going to happen. Ken, I promise you, that's what's going to happen. In a couple of weeks' time, Mrs May's chief whip is going to say to the backbenchers and to the DUP, I'm sorry, but we're not going for no deal. And your choice, folks, is back, my agreement, or we're going to extend Article 50. That's what they're going to do to them, Ken.
May I ask you one question before I go?
Yeah.
What I'd like to know is, why wasn't Ollie Robbins chastised or sacked when he knew when he made that comment that what was around and who was around and that would reach the papers? And I think it was a contrivance to make sure that her ladyship was delivering a fait accompli. Nothing's happened to him.
No, well, Ken, I suppose actually the reason nothing's happened to him is, firstly, he was speaking the truth, and secondly, maybe he was doing Mrs May's dirty work for her. I don't know. Ken, thank you. I'm off to Liverpool to speak to Steve. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning to you, Nigel. Hope you're well.
I'm very well, actually, but I'm just watching, Steve, a lot of people who I shared platforms with during the referendum and since the referendum quite significantly softening their position.
Yeah, I think we can all see that. I think, you could call it pragmatism. I've got another word for it, but I think the mood music does suggest that there were between 60 and 70 Labour MPs in sensitive constituencies, shall we say, that are ready to fall into line, and obviously members of the ERG, etc. But, it could possibly go through. I don't want it to. I think it's a poor deal. But I think it could possibly go through. However, when that does go through, is that the point when Theresa May needs to stand down and resign, and then we need to get a serious Brexiteer to negotiate the free trade deal? Okay,
Steve, you have just put your finger on something I was keeping up my sleeve, but here is what's really going on behind the scenes, right? They are saying, ERG and others are saying to the Tory party, all right, okay, get us a tweak, get us a change, all right? We will vote for your deal, but the price is Mrs May goes and we get a Brexiteer in charge of the next stage. Steve, that's what's really happening.
Absolutely. That's what I've been thinking over the past couple of days, Nigel.
Yeah.
I think it's a case of Sir Graham Brady's come alongside. Now, I think, obviously, Sir Graham Brady's also said that we are essentially a nation of lions being led by donkeys. Now, He did. That is catastrophic for Theresa May's leadership. For someone like Sir Graham to say that. Now, I think that there is a move afoot within the ERG to do exactly as you just alluded to, and I've mentioned, and I think it could be a deal that's being made. We'll get this, and then we'll bury this with you. You go with it. All the baggage of the withdrawal agreement goes with you. Your buried, your history, your career is over, and then we move on to a serious Brexit to negotiate a free trade deal. I think that's what's going to happen. That
is being talked about. And Steve, just one final point. Could it be that part of the calculation for people in the ERG group of backing this deal is they fear that if there is a delay, it will split the Conservative Party and allow somebody else to come in and take millions of votes off them? Could this be ultimately about putting the party first?
Absolutely. I think the Tory party is the biggest machine in politics, and they know how to survive better than any other party in this country. They always have. Yeah. So they will do. Let's be honest. If the Tory party is right up there within the establishment and the deep state in this country, I mean, everybody knows. So
it's kind of party before country, Steve, is it, in this case?
Absolutely. It's self-preservation.
Steve, I absolutely agree with all the points you've made this morning, and I thank you for the call. Somebody else tell me I've got this wrong. Somebody else tell me, actually, I need to vote for this deal in the European Parliament with the amendment, as do the ERG in the House of Commons in 2 weeks' time. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it is 10:15.
This is LBC.
Most productive way to travel? Richard Percy, CEO of SafeToNet, takes the train.
If I'm on a train in particular, I always book my seat in advance, which means I can actually relax and think about what it is that I'm trying to do. I actually find it the most rewarding time in terms of productivity.
Arrive ready for business with Great Western Railway, who offer free Wi-Fi on board most services. To find out more and for your chance to win a business bundle, including a laptop and smartwatch, visit lbc.co.uk.
This is not a drill. I repeat, not a drill. This is an official FOMO warning for anyone looking to buy a new Vauxhall Mocha X. The Vauxhall SUV event is now on until the 4th of March. Do not attempt to fight the FOMO. Please locate your wallet and calmly make your way to your nearest Vauxhall retailer. T's and C's and exclusions apply. Participating retailers only.
Search Vauxhall event. Vauxhall. British brand since 1903.
Lanes 2 and 3 have reopened between the junction 1 and the roundabout northbound slope southbound.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Stay safe. Stay back. Search Highways England for more information.
Ooh, now let's get one of you on top of the mountain. Perfect. And one with a vineyard in the background. Very nice. Now one in front of the castle. You look great against the sunset.
There are many ways to experience the picturesque beauty of Mallorca this winter, with its stunning mountains, vineyards and castles. But only one way to fly. Fly British Airways from Gatwick to Palma from £29 each way based on a return fare. Availability and dates are limited. Conditions and booking fee may apply. For more details, cba.com/Gatwick.
Heart disease, diabetes, depression. Can you beat them simply by changing what you eat? Free inside the Mail on Sunday, Eat to Beat Illness, an unmissable 8-page special from top NHS doctor and best-selling author Dr. Rupi Aujala's unmissable new book, The Doctor's Kitchen. He reveals the life-changing advice and essential recipes he believes can be a blueprint for a healthier new you. Eat to Beat Illness, free inside the Mail on Sunday.
With a 2-year unlimited mileage warranty and 2-year UK and European roadside assistance, we're there for you. Even if you're not too sure where there is. Land Rover approved used. Winner of What Car Best Used Car Scheme 2 years running. Search Land Rover approved Land Rover, above and beyond.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, peace is potentially breaking out between the ERG, the DUP and Mrs May over the withdrawal agreement, provided Geoffrey Cox can get a legal change to the backstop so we know we can leave it at some point in the future and won't be at their mercy and won't be trapped in a customs union forever. People are lining up now to support the deal. Is it time for Eurosceptics to get behind it? I just don't think it is, but I'm keen to hear what you've got to say. Gail says the ERG must not legitimise May's deal. I'd rather wait. So, Gail, they're saying that she would be prepared to accept the risk of extension. There are some, of course, Gail, that say if we extend it once, we'll extend it again, and we may never leave. James in Swindon says the ERG have been ground down into submission. Yes, James, but I also think part of this calculation is that Mrs May will go as leader this summer, and they're trying to keep their party together. They're scared. They're really scared that a political party will come along and take millions of votes from them. I also, James, don't think that many of them want this country to contest the European elections on May the 23rd, because they might just be a little bit worried about what I might do in that campaign. Hey, opinions on that, please. I'm going to Wimbledon to speak to Peter. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Nigel. A couple of points I would like to make. The first one, the only way, Nigel, you can get Brexit is by going along with the deal. And people like yourself and the ERG, they suddenly realising this. There's no other way. And because if it goes back to the people, a lot of people woken up to the lies by conmen like you.
Oh, Peter, we've had 50 years of lies about Europe from the establishment.
Let me ask you a direct question, and you can answer it then, and then we can see who's the conman, who's not. Before the referendum took place, you guys were screaming we're going to take control of our borders, and now suddenly, once you realise this cannot be achieved in Ireland because it's going to conflict with a Good Friday peace agreement, you're saying we don't need a border anymore. So how are you going to deliver on your promise you made to those 17.4?
Well, Peter, we've had a common travel area.
Ill-informed people.
We've had a common travel area. We've had a common travel area with Ireland for decades and decades and decades. All right, so Northern Ireland is a different situation. But do Brexiteers want to have proper immigration controls? Do Brexiteers want us to be less discriminatory, namely in favour of Europeans against people from the rest of the world? Yeah, of course we want all of those things, and of course they're all entirely possible. But Peter, let me ask you, so you think, if you put yourself, and you're obviously in the other camp, but you think if I want Brexit, I should back this deal because you think it's the only way, yeah?
Well, that's the only way. You know, it's a given there are people on your side who, no matter what you say or what you do, they just haven't got enough brain cells in their head. They will go along with whatever you're going to say. But majority of
so they're stupid, are they? So Brexiteers are stupid, are they?
Well, a lot of them are.
Ah, very good. I'm enjoying this now. Excellent. I've woken up.
Because I can tell you another thing is because you keep peddling this idea that we're going to be better off. Now, 3 years down the line, to be honest with you, only racist, stupid, and conmen like you are pushing this self-harming of the British nation because
this is all a bit low-grade, Peter, isn't it?
When people losing their job, you keep talking about fishermen.
Had you noticed, Peter? Wait, hang on a second. Had you noticed that the employment figures that were published just about 10 days ago showed there are now a record number of people working in this country, and more importantly, that average wages last year rose by 3.4%, and that at a time when Italy is in recession and Germany is about to go into recession.
Don't worry about Italy and Germany. We heard this before. The French winemakers, German car makers, and all the rest of it. They need more than we need that. They need us more than we need them. No, the fact of the matter is that factories closing down, the companies moving, the funds, the investments are moving out of this country.
No, they're not.
Since 2015, the electric car vehicles, which is going to be the future of this country, investment dried out from 2.5 billion to 0.5 billion. And then you wonder why Honda,
and you know why that is?
And others are moving production away from this country because Japan has signed a new trade deal, free trade agreement with the European Union, the biggest trading market in the world. We are leaving that union. That's why those big manufacturers are moving back out of this country.
So the EU's free trade deal is forcing car makers to leave the European Union and the European time zone and go back to Japan. You could argue that, Peter. I understand that.
They're not leaving European Union. They live in United Kingdom. No. Moving out of European Union.
Yeah, they're not moving to Europe, are they? That's not happening.
They're not.
That is not happening. Peter, on the car issue, you've got several things here, but clearly the big investment in electric vehicles is taking place in the Far East. It's not taking place in Europe. Car sales, particularly of diesels, are falling sharply. But, Peter, we can argue this either way. Do you think Mrs May's deal will pass? Let me ask you that.
Well, in my opinion, it's not going to pass in your opinion, it's not going to pass. My opinion, it's not going to pass for the reason that it's much, much worse deal than we already have. And there is no better deal in the world we can get by any Brexit. And people should listen to this. People who are on your side should realise we are out of Schengen, we have our own currency, we have unrestricted access to single market, we are within a customs union, yeah?
We don't, Peter, we don't want to be in a customs union. We do not want to be in a customs union. Every argument that was made by the Brexit side was about us not being in the customs union, being free.
Daniel Hannan and Owen Patterson, before the referendum took place, were saying no one is talking about us leaving the single market. Suddenly now we are. What is going on, guys?
I do remember Mr Hannan doing that, but no other leading Brexiteer said that. Peter, we'll agree to disagree. I'm going to move on rapidly. Victoria says by tweet, I couldn't support the deal if the backstop is there. Well, Victoria, they're going to try and get this backstop not removed, but they're going to get an assurance of some kind, whether that comes in the form of a codicil or an attached letter, which they lodge at the United Nations in New York to show that it's legally binding. I don't know, but probably what Geoffrey Cox will come back with is some form of smoke and mirrors that doesn't really legally mean that. I mean, after all, if the European Union themselves have produced a report to say there is a technological way we can cross goods over the border without any difficulties, why have the backstop at all, is what I would have thought. Ron feels strongly the May deal stinks, but I'm afraid that the whole Brexit saga could be cancelled. I'll take it with a lump in my throat. So, Ron, you've been beaten into submission, and I think that's partly what's happening to MPs, but I do think there's a degree of self-preservation about the Tory party that is going on here. Nick is calling from Croydon. Good morning, Nick.
Hello, Nigel. Morning to you. Sir, you've done a marvellous thing for our nation, campaigning all these years. The fact that you're not Sir Nigel by now, or even Lord Farage.
Not much chance there, old boy, but anyway.
Oh, no, none whatsoever. But you've done a fantastic service for our country, but you're wrong on this.
OK, Nigel. Explain.
The reason why is there's not the numbers within Parliament to allow us to leave on a WTO terms. I don't mind leaving with no deal, but I don't think the House of Commons will allow it to happen.
I get the logic of that, Nick, right? I get the logic of that. However, there's one other factor here that I don't think gets talked about enough, and it's this.
Carry on.
We have in place right now, in existence, is the EU Withdrawal Act. It is an act of Parliament. It comes as a direct consequence of 498 MPs voting for Article 50. And so Article 50, Nick, says that we leave 2 years after we trigger
it does.
With a withdrawal agreement or without a withdrawal agreement, and whatever Parliament says or does, or whatever games Speaker Burko gets up to, the fact is the only people that can willfully change that piece of legislation are the government themselves. So there is a way through this, and that is that Theresa May puts her deal forward, it gets voted down again, and she then says, we're sticking with the legislation and we're leaving. So there is a way it could be done, Nick.
I have a fear that MPs between them will somehow vote for an amendment that changes that between now and March 29th. I've no faith that the government won't finesse it so that legal status, which exists as of now, will still be the legal status in the event that Mrs May's deal isn't
the reality, Nick? I mean, is it Mrs May preventing Brexit then, really?
I think she is insistent on getting a deal through, and I think as long as there is some kind of legally binding guarantee that in the event the transition period ends without a trade agreement, we can just walk away then I think that's fine. I think the only thing I think MPs should stick to their guns, the ERG should stick to their guns, is in the event that there is no legal guarantee we can walk away, because then it's leaving in name only. I don't see the harm in a trade deal with the EU post-March 29th. It makes perfect sense to me.
But why would they even give us a...
We can't be tied in
But Nick, at the next stage of the negotiations, it'll be another 2 or 3 years of agony. The difference being, of course...
Well, isn't it 21 months?
Well, yeah, but
it'll... transition period?
Nick, I'll bet you a tenner it's extended to the next general election, 2022, all right? Okay? And the point is... Fine, we're on. Good, right, I'm going to write that down. The point is, we're going to be at their mercy.
I mean, to farm and pay it, Nigel, with pleasure.
Just round the corner from me, yeah. The point is, Nick, we're going to be at their mercy. They'll be making laws and rules that affect this country, affect our industries. We will have no say over it whatsoever. I think we're headed for a truly dreadful period under this deal. But Nick, so your advice to me, when later on this month I may well get a vote on this in Strasbourg, is you think I should swallow hard and vote for it?
As long as there is a means the UK can walk away after the 21 months and there's no deal.
All right. OK, Nick, thank you. Well, of course, that's a lot of what Nick was talking about. There was sort of the Malthouse compromise that was being put forward. But I do repeat the point. The legislation exists. The only people that can change that legislation are the government themselves if they choose to. Mrs May could stand firm, take us out of the European Union on March the 29th on a WTO deal and, in my view, be an all-time national heroine. I just don't think she's got the will to do it. I hope I'm wrong. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 10:30 and time for the news headlines with Philip Chryssikos.
The government insists it's trying to reduce knife crime after 2 teenagers were killed in 2 separate attacks in less than 24 hours in Manchester and London. Justice Minister Rory Stewart says he's making it harder to get weapons, promoting education programmes and understanding any links with drugs. The Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell says Labour clearly has a problem with anti-Semitism, but that people do not have any institutionally anti-Semitic views within Labour. This morning, the Jewish Labour movement says its members are considering ending its 99-year affiliation with Labour. Women and girls will be offered free sanitary products while being cared for in NHS hospitals in England. NHS England says it wants to stop, in its words, the unnecessary embarrassment as patients try to recover from illnesses. LBC weather, wet and windy with those winds increasing from the southwest of England once Storm Freya arrives this afternoon, a high of 13 degrees.
This is LBC.
Heart disease, diabetes, depression. Can you beat them simply by changing what you eat? Free inside the Mail on Sunday, Eat to Beat Illness, an unmissable 8-page special from top NHS doctor and best-selling author Dr. Rupi Aujala's unmissable new book, The Doctor's Kitchen. He reveals the life-changing advice and essential recipes he believes can be a blueprint for a healthier new you. Eat to Beat Illness, free inside the Mail on Sunday.
This is not a drill. I repeat, not a drill. This is an official FOMO warning for anyone looking to buy a new Vauxhall Crossland X. The Vauxhall SUV event is now on until the 4th of March. Do not attempt to fight the FOMO. Please locate your wallet and calmly make your way to your nearest Vauxhall retailer. T's and C's and exclusions apply. Participating retailers only.
Search Vauxhall event. Vauxhall. British brand since 1903.
It's Flavour of the Alps week at Lidl, so we've partnered with Jet2 City Breaks to give you the chance to win a city break for 2 to Salzburg. So your shopping trip might go from this to this. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. See lidl.co.uk/jet2holidays for details. T's and C's apply.
Oh, it's absolutely pouring down. It's your turn to open the gates.
I'm not getting out of the car. I'm the driver.
Wait. It doesn't have to be this way. FAC automated gates allow you to open, close and lock with the push of a button. Convenience and security day and night. FAC has specialists in automated gates, doors and barriers. Search faac.co.uk. FAAC. Simply automatic.
Your future is here. The Global Academy, a forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
Lanes 2 and 3 have reopened between the junction 1 and the roundabout northbound slope southbound.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Stay safe. Stay back. Search Highways England for more information.
It took two brothers.
And me, a designer.
A software engineer.
A manufacturing leader.
A digital content creator.
A product packer.
And me, Ben, the relationship manager from Lloyds Bank, to bring the tech industry and sustainable fashion together.
Because by working together with the business, he helped provide the finance needed for T-Mill to make sustainable clothing more accessible. Lloyds Bank, by the side of business.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
It's a big dilemma for the ERG, the DUP and ultimately for MEPs like me. Do we, those of us that have spent, well in my case, 25 years fighting to get us out of the European Union, do we accept Mrs May's deal and leave the treaties, but be wrapped into a new treaty, which I find wholly unacceptable on a number of levels, not just the backstop? Or do we give in and say this is as good as it's going to get? Because if the alternative is extension, that could mean effectively we don't actually ever leave. Difficult stuff. Now, I've just got back from Washington, D.C., and I was there for a couple of days. Big annual CPAC Conservative conference, which I spoke at. And President Trump, of course, spoke there yesterday, spoke for 2 hours, actually, yesterday. And he'd got in the night before from Vietnam after his meetings with Kim Jong-un. This is what Trump had to say about that meeting.
We spent pretty much all day with Kim Jong-un, who is, he's quite a guy and quite a character, and I think our relationship is very strong. But at this time, we had some options, and at this time we decided not to do any of the options, and we'll see where that goes. But it was a very interesting 2 days, and I think actually it was a very productive 2 days, but sometimes you have to walk.
Sometimes you have to walk.
This was just one of those times.
Sometimes you have to walk. And I did sit down yesterday and spend some time with President Trump, and we talked about various things. And obviously, he says, well, look, it's not bad, is it? We've got no missiles going over Japanese airspace. There's no more nuclear testing. And actually, he made it clear that when a bad deal's on the table, you get up and you walk. No deal is better than a bad deal, is what President Trump is saying about that deal that was on the table with the North Koreans. Now, did I discuss that principle with him as far as Brexit's concerned in this country? Well, I think I better keep that private. But there we are. Let's move on. Let's get back to our subject. I'm going to go to Sarah, who's calling from Taunton. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. What I actually think is I agree with your analysis. I'd love these negotiations to have gone differently from day one, but they didn't. And I believe the deficiencies in this deal are solely at the door of Remainer campaigns with the Remainer government, with the Remainer media, and all the rest of it. And should they reject it, providing the backstop nonsense is actually legally get-outable, should they reject it, I think we're really in danger of not doing it at all. And not only would that put this whole project back years and years and years, I very much doubt whether the country would ever have enough opportunity again to vote for it. And what we'd be left with was an empowered EU. These are awful negotiations. They've gone badly from day one. However, this is where we are right now. And the only way of getting out of it is to agree, providing the backstop is taken care of, and move on to the actual trade negotiations. I don't like it. I wish it wasn't happening in this way, but it is.
No, but the trouble is, Sarah, of course, in these next rounds of negotiations, the EU don't actually have to give us anything, because they've got us where they've actually got us where they want us. They've got us trapped inside something that we're paying a huge amount of money for. I mean, Sarah, I do understand the argument that there is a risk, some think, of extension, meaning we'd never ever leave, and maybe into that space you'd get a campaign for a second referendum. But I feel at the moment I'd rather take those risks than accept that deal. That's how I feel about it right now.
But we're taking a risk also with our whole society being so divided. I don't think it's worth that risk. I think that this entire situation could really veer out of control, and even out of the control of governments.
Wow. So you really are quite fearful?
Well, I've looked at it quite carefully. I've followed it very carefully as far as one can. And I do believe that. I believe that these people that want to stay in the EU are real fanatics. I actually really think that. I think everything that we've seen and everything that we know seems to gesture to me that that's what they are. And they're also very ruthless because they've used Ireland in a very underhand way and bought into the idea that that border somehow is going to become a free-for-all, which in itself is awful.
Well, they've actually, Sarah, said that, you know, if any form of border comes back, it'll lead to terrorism coming back, which are very irresponsible in my view. Really irresponsible. It's
totally irresponsible, but it's also very irresponsible for the economy of Ireland. This entire business is like that. And also, I think we've got to actually be objective and think there are a lot of people in this country that didn't want to leave the EU. And May's deal is actually a fudge. And in future, the deficiencies in it will be at their door.
Yeah. Yes, I think, you know, if her deal did go through and it passes in Westminster and it passes in Strasbourg, and we leave with her deal on March the 29th, I suppose probably a huge number of Brexiteers will say, well, thank goodness for that, we're out. And then we'll realise, actually, we've signed up to a new treaty, which some could argue is even worse than the one we're in at the moment.
Well, to be frank, I haven't read it, and I don't know the real ins and outs of it. But if the media are at all reliable, I think in time we will be out of it. And since we've been in it so long, that will be a relief. Well,
that's the one thing I think we'd have to do, Sarah, that because, you know, if we were to sign up to something that we couldn't get out of, then a future government would have to just say, do you know what, we are going to use the Vienna Convention on ending treaties. We're just going to have to abrogate this. Sarah, let's see whether Cox gets any legally binding assurance. If he does, then there's a good chance this deal will go through. But I absolutely hate it. I thank you for your call. And I hate the position that the Prime Minister's put us in. You know, Ollie Robbins and Theresa May have put us in this position. It is appalling. Steve says the ERG should not accept any legal change and the backstop should be removed. Leave is leave. Well, I agree, Steve, the backstop should be removed, but it won't be because, hey, as soon as she signed up to that, they had the stronger hand over us, I'm afraid. Anonymous text says to me, very important question. If you have a time-limited backstop but the same useless Parliament, if we get to the end of the backstop time limit, they'll ask to extend it rather than go for no deal because they're still the same Remain Parliament. Well, whoever you are, in some ways you're right. I mean, in some ways what we actually need is British politics as it is to break up because the existing parties are not dealing with this in any sense at all. A realignment of British politics might be the one way this gets sorted out, but not, I suspect, the way that Chuka Ramuna thinks it's going to work out. Neil is a new caller from Sheffield. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well, but Neil, I'm in the same dilemma. I'm in the same dilemma as the ERG, the same dilemma, indeed, as the DUP, and millions of people out there. You know, this deal is so awful.
I agree, but we need to have some compromise. You know, I voted leave. I wanted to go on WTO, just like yourself and most other people. But I think that there are going to need to be some compromises. Let's face it. However much we want WTO, it looks very, very, very unlikely that's going to happen. And I'd rather, you know, the two problems with the deal, let's face it, are the border issue and the 39 billion. Let's face it, they're the two main problems. But something's got to give. I think if this is the only way we can get out in my generation, in my lifetime, then let's try it. You know, it can't be any worse than staying in. You know, if we can get rid of the border issue, then it's got to be a lot better than staying in now.
Neil,
I think the guy that you spoke to, earlier, that called us all idiots.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's an idiot.
Yeah, wasn't that sweet of him?
4 million people are idiots.
Wasn't that sweet of him on a Sunday morning to come on and call us all morons? Oh, well, hey, there we are. There we are. But, there we are. That's the great thing, Neil, about LBC. LBC allows the public to come on and have a debate and say, provided the language is clean, to say pretty much what they want, and that's a good thing. Yeah. In a democracy, that is a good thing. Neil, I mean, you make the point about the need for compromise, all right? But I would argue this, the ERG have already made massive compromises. They are prepared to countenance £39 billion. They are prepared to countenance that we go for this long implementation period of 2 or 3 years. They've already shifted massively from their original position. But I think it's clear, Neil, if they don't get legal assurance, this deal fails. But if they do get legal assurance, this deal goes through. But I still think, Neil, it's just... I just think the deal's a shocker. But you're saying...
I agree.
But you're saying...
I'm not going to sit and disagree with you. I'd like to say WTO is my preferred option, like most people. But at the end of the day, if it's the choice of take the deal and just pray that something can happen, that works for us, or have a second referendum / stay in the EU, I'd rather take the risk of just trying the deal. Okay. It can't be any worse. If we can get out of that border issue, it can't be any worse than staying in the EU. It's just terrible.
I don't know, Neil. I mean, you could argue in some ways it's even worse, actually. But I just fear, Neil, that we've taken such a huge heave to get as far as we have, that if we accept Brexit in name only, goodness me, getting any future change is going to be very, very hard indeed. Neil, thank you very much for your calls and your thoughts. And Neil, I think reflecting the view that clearly a growing number of Conservative MPs are reflecting, that are just, if we don't do this now, will we ever be able to do it? I'm still not convinced by that argument. Fitz on Facebook says we need to leave on the 29th of March with no deal. Well, that's all Fitz in the hands of the Prime Minister. If she wanted that to happen, she could make it happen. Could she surprise us all? I don't think so. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it is 10:45.
Eddie Mair, weekdays from 4 p.m. on LBC.
Would any different Prime Minister be doing a better job?
It's Oliver Robbins that has led most of these negotiations.
Yeah, I understand.
The PM is now...
I'm just wondering, because we're asking our listeners this hour, would anyone do a better job?
Look, you could do with a courtesy of allowing me to answer the question that you asked me.
If you answer it.
Eddie Mair, weekdays from 4 p.m. LBC.
I'm making a pledge in my will to cancer research to save more lives in the future.
People who leave money in wills, without that money, we wouldn't be able to do the research that we do. It's as simple as that.
There is every reason for us to be optimistic about the future when it comes to cancer research, because the field is moving so fast, and from where we were maybe 10 years ago, there are so many treatments available.
Join the supporters and researchers pledging to beat cancer with Cancer Research UK. Find out how you can make a pledge to leave a gift in your will at cruk.org/pledge. Together, we will beat cancer.
Love your skin, love your hair, love your nails. Perfectil delivers nutritional support from within, including zinc, to help you maintain normal skin, hair and nails. Perfectil, the science of beauty, from Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company. From Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
This is not a drill. I repeat, not a drill. This is an official FOMO warning for anyone looking to buy a new SUV. The Vauxhall SUV event is now on until the 4th of March. Do not attempt to fight the FOMO. Please locate your wallet and calmly make your way to your nearest Vauxhall retailer. T's and C's and exclusions apply. Participating retailers only.
Search Vauxhall event. Vauxhall, British brand since 1903.
46 years ago, Swale Heating was born. We've installed thousands of boilers, and now the process is even easier. There's no need for a household survey. Just go to swaleheating.com. Answer a few questions, we'll recommend the best boiler, then install it at a time to suit you. Rely on us to keep you warm.
It's Flavour of the Alps week at Lidl, so we've partnered with Jet2 City Breaks to give you the chance to win a city break for 2 to Salzburg. So your shopping trip might go from this to this. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. See lidl.co.uk/Jet2 holidays for details. T's and C's apply.
If you or your loved one has mild Alzheimer's disease,
St Pancras Clinical Research in London would like to hear from you. We're looking for people aged 50 plus with mild Alzheimer's to take part in a new clinical research study. All volunteers will be paid for their time and reasonable expenses. To find out more about the study and apply, visit stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
Hello, hi. I bought this gym membership as I wanted to get fit, but I just read that dad bods are in right now, so I think I might just stick with what I've got. So, could I get my money, please?
Money for a gym membership you don't use? Not so smarty. Money off your next phone bill for mobile data you don't use? Smarty. Plans starting from £6.25 per month for 1 gig of data and unlimited calls and texts. Call exclusions apply. Join today at smarty.co.uk. Simple, honest, mobile.
It's a kind of magic.
It's the last few days of the Furniture Village sale.
Magic.
With amazing final reductions on hundreds of sofas, dining and beds, including all our famous brands. So come in store or go online now. But hurry, it's your last chance to save in the Furniture Village sale.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag FarageOnLBC.
Potential peace breaking out between the ERG Eurosceptic group and the government. They just want Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General, to go and get some way that says we will not be bound by the backstop. We'll be able to leave it if we want to. And then they'll accept the deal, making absolutely huge compromises. Well, something is just too much, and Karen on Facebook says there is just too much compromise in this deal. And Karen, I'm with you. Even without the backstop, I still think it's absolutely awful. We're in the wrong place. I don't know. It's very, very difficult. I understand the dilemma that everybody's in. Those of us that really want Brexit, this, of course, offers us Brexit in a sense, but it is Brexit in name only. It's just not good enough. I think it is. I think this should be voted down, and you never know. We might just get to leave on WTO terms, and if we don't, am I prepared to take the risk of extension? Well, I'm afraid I probably am at this stage. Graham is calling from Tidworth. Good morning, Graham.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
And congratulations on your efforts for pulling us out of the mud so far. Well done to you, sir.
Well, that's sweet of you, Graham, but hey, we all face a very big dilemma right now.
Well, what I'm phoning in to say is if we can get a 5-year sunset clause on the backstop,
right,
that could effectively guarantee us a WTO if the trade talks fail, because the idea of the withdrawal period was to negotiate the trade deal. And if, as previously negotiations have shown, that it will take a bit longer than 2 years, then we could say, right, OK, we've got a 5-year period, whereas Nick Ferraro will probably validate, when you pull an animal out of the mud, you still have to wash it clean. So that would be our wash and clean period, and we make it clear from the get-go, after, as your previous caller said, get rid of May for Brexit here, and then say, right, we are preparing for a no-deal withdrawal, WTO, in 7 years' time, get your act together, let's get a deal that is fair to everybody.
I mean, my problem with that, Graham, is if we accept this time limit of 2025, that'll be 9 years after we voted in the referendum. That's unacceptable. And also, the thought, unless we get a radical change in the type of people who are in Parliament, the kind of parties that are represented in Parliament, we're not, on current form, Graham, very likely to have a pro-WTO Parliament in a few years' time. We haven't got one now, have we?
Well, as you said earlier, that's what you think that Jacob Rees-Mogg is doing. He's saying, right, we'll put up with it for now, but you have got to go on the conditions that all the negotiators are pro-Brexiteers, and even that includes drafting you on board, Nigel.
Well, there's certainly been talk, Graham, of people from the Leave Means Leave camp, etc., being part of that negotiating team, so that we did get people who were resolute, and it would be perhaps a slight improvement in the situation. But wouldn't it just be better to end the agony and do WTO now?
It would, but unfortunately we haven't got enough WTO-minded people in the Parliament to turn around and say to Theresa, right, march into Juncker, Barnier and et al.'s office and say, right, it's simple. Give us a good deal or we're gone. Unfortunately, we got the wrong type of Prime Minister in May because she was a pro-Remainer. You
literally could not invent this situation, Graham, could you?
Believe me, if I was a fiction writer, I'd have been putting this out on the book stands by now.
Graham, thank you. And Graham, they're trying to be as pragmatic as possible, but the thought that we should accept something that would expire in 2025. I'm sorry, I'm not having any of that. Rob is a new caller from Stourbridge in the West Midlands. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel. Thank you for taking my call.
Not one bit.
Yeah, I just want to put a slightly different take on it, really. Why don't we just extend the Article 50 for 2 years? During that period, we can negotiate the trade deal. Then we know what our future relationship looks like, and then we can vote on the withdrawal agreement and the trade deal all together. And potentially, if it's still no good, and we leave on WTO after 2 years, we save ourselves $39 billion as well.
So when would we do this, Rob?
Well, we'll go to them now with the option of extending the Article 50.
Yeah.
And then for the next 2 years, negotiating the trade deal, and that will remove the need for the potential backstop. And then vote on the two of them together in 2 years.
What, in another referendum, you mean?
No. Put it through Parliament. So we'll negotiate the trade deal for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Because that's the point of the next 21 months, isn't it? In the withdrawal, in the
agreement
negotiation period.
Yeah.
So we take the next 2 years negotiating the trade deal with them. Then at the end of that, if the trade deal is not acceptable, we'll leave on WTO. If it is acceptable, we pay them the $39 billion and we get on with our lives.
But what if Parliament or the government in 2 years' time wasn't resolute about this and decided to kick the can down the road for another 2 years?
That is a potential problem, especially if we've got the government like we've got now at the moment.
Yes, it is. I mean, Rob, whichever way you look at this, I mean, we are where we are because basically Parliament doesn't accept the result of the referendum. We are where we are because people do not want a clean Brexit. And I thought it was pretty unequivocal in this referendum that we were voting to leave the EU, the customs union and the single market. It couldn't have been clearer as far as I was concerned. So, Rob, I understand, once again, you're somebody else. You're looking to try and find a solution, but it's a solution by which our politicians, Rob, I put to you, could betray us again.
I do agree entirely. I just think it saves us, compromising and paying $39 billion up front before we even know what we're going to get in the end.
So what, pay half now?
Pay nothing now.
Pay nothing now?
Pay nothing now and make it conditional on a decent trade deal in 2 years' time.
OK, because I mean, Jacob was suggesting pay half now, wasn't he?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we could do that as a goodwill gesture. My only issue is the EU have shown us no goodwill in return so far.
None.
So
None at all. No, in fact, they behave like a bunch of thugs and bullies, which I think is why if there was ever a second referendum, we'd vote to leave by a bigger margin. Rob, thank you. Ross is a new caller from Coventry. Hi, Ross.
Hi, Nigel.
Good morning.
Nice to speak to you.
So what's going to happen, Ross?
Oh, crikey, is it a disaster or what?
It is. It really is.
You know, that traitors, cowards, and I always thought politicians were kind of half intelligent. But they're not, are they?
Did you? Where did you get that impression from, Ross?
Well, some of them did go to a good school.
Yeah, true.
But I can't believe it. I don't know what the sense is in it. We should be leaving on WTO, but we shouldn't have even got to that stage. Why wasn't a no deal negotiated from the very beginning?
Well, in a sense, Ross, it was because, it was part of Article 50. 500 or 498 MPs did vote for that, to leave with a deal or, indeed, to leave without one. And a huge amount of work, Ross, is now going on. I mean, just last week, there was a big agreement between the City of London and the American CFTC about how we would deal with derivatives and many other things once we've left. The president of the Port of Calais tells us they're ready, there'll be no problems. All the scare stories about aeroplanes have disappeared. I mean, in many ways, a lot of work's gone on to prepare for a no deal, Ross.
Oh, I totally agree. But you see, there's too many people with ulterior motives, and the ulterior motives is it's not all to do. They're not thinking about the country and the future. The future's transition periods, and we don't need all that.
No, well...
Okay, there might be some disruption, there might be some bits and pieces. Crikey, what about when we were all on a 3-day week? And I remember them days.
Yep, well, we don't want to return to those, Ross, that's for certain.
No, we don't.
We really don't.
And the thing is, we've been through a lot of stuff in our past, and the way I can't believe that people are not really, really excited to just get out and go and make our way in the world.
I think plenty of us are, Ross. Ross, I thank you for your call. Yvonne from Gravesend says to me, I am not happy with May's deal. It isn't what I voted for. But if we have another referendum, we don't know what would be on the ballot paper. Would it be May's deal or Remain? I think we are being stitched up. What a disgrace. Well, Yvonne, you know, there is a big debate about this. I mean, if there was a second referendum, should Remain even be on the ballot paper? Should it be actually about the means by which we're leaving? I've even heard suggestions coming from some in the Labour Party. Oh, another referendum on May's deal against Remain. Well, hang on, May's deal's not really leaving. I think I'd probably stay at home in that situation. So the question is an important one. But, and this again, is this fundamental dilemma, and it's why I want to go on discussing this after the news at 11, this fundamental dilemma that those that want Brexit are facing up to. They're facing up to it in the House of Commons. They will be facing up to it too when this indeed comes to Strasbourg. If this deal gets changed, if the backstop gets removed, my sense is Parliament might just pass it. It may not be easy, but it will probably just about pass it. But if what we get back is a bit of a fudge, well, who's to say? So I want really to move this debate on over the course of the next hour and to ask you, you know, would you rather face another referendum or Mrs May's deal? Are you so Eurosceptic? Do you so hate Mrs May's deal you'll risk another referendum? Let me know what you think about that on 0345 6060 973. We'll also talk about the latest horrendous knife crime that took place, 17-year-old girl losing her life in London. And a good news story. We're going to the Wonston Arms down in Hampshire, just outside Winchester, where a friend of mine has just won Pub of the Year. All we ever hear about are pubs closing. A friend of mine's just won the big prize. We're going to talk to him and find out what makes a great pub these days.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, two teenagers being questioned after a 17-year-old boy was stabbed to death in a village in Greater Manchester. The teenager was attacked in Hales Barnes yesterday evening. Father Martin Onala is a priest at the Holy Angels Catholic Church there. He's given a reaction to LBC.
We're really going to pray for the victim and pray for an end to this kind of violence. I don't know where it comes from or what leads to this.
Separately, the Metropolitan Police continuing to investigate a knife attack on a 17-year-old girl in East London less than 24 hours earlier. Jodie Chesney was killed in a park in Havering last Friday night. In reaction, the government says there is a focus on finding out what's responsible for the rise in knife crime after those deaths of the two teenagers in the two separate attacks. Justice Minister Rory Stewart says they're trying to make knife crimes harder to commit.
So that's everything from making it more difficult to actually acquire knives in the first place, getting into schools, looking at education programs, making sure that we understand the connection between knife crimes and drugs, and putting investment in.
In other headlines this hour, the Shadow Chancellor is rejecting claims Labour is institutionally anti-Semitic, but John McDonnell does admit there is a problem in the party.
0.1% of our membership seem to have been involved in some form of anti-Semitism. It's a tiny number, but it's still a problem. I do not want one anti-Semite in our party.
In response, the Jewish Labour movement says its members are considering ending its 99-year affiliation with Labour. Its National Secretary Peter Mason blames Labour's alleged failure to deal with anti-Semitism. Theresa May's Brexit agreement now has the potential backing of the chairman of the Conservatives' influential 1922 Committee of Backbench MPs. Sir Graham Brady says we should pull together behind the Prime Minister and help tell her to deliver the exit from the European Union on the 29th of March. Travel disruption is expected later when Storm Freya brings gusts of up to 65 miles per hour. A yellow warning for wind is in place for large parts of the UK from 3 o'clock this afternoon until 6 tomorrow morning. Sophie Yeomans from the Met Office has told LBC what's ahead.
A bit of a false start there with the warm temperatures last week. You know, next couple of weeks we could see the temperatures starting to come back down again. Maybe a frost in a few places during the morning times.
A space capsule is due to dock at the International Space Station any moment now.
That docking coming at 2:51
a.m. Pacific, as the International Space Station and Dragon were flying just about 260 statute miles over planet Earth, just north of New Zealand. So,
ring reflection in progress.
If the SpaceX mission is successful, it could carry people into orbit from the United States for the first time from US soil since 2011. LBC weather, wet and windy, with those winds increasing from the southwest of England once Storm Freya arrives this afternoon, a high of 13 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
It's Flavour of the Alps week at Lidl, so we've partnered with Jet2 City Breaks to give you the chance to win a city break for two to Salzburg. So your shopping trip might go from this to this. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. See lidl.co.uk/jet2holidays for details. T's and C's apply.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Now, much as I want a WTO negotiated no-deal Brexit, I'm realistic enough to know that despite the legislation being in place, that actually the Prime Minister just won't go for that option. Now, I really, honestly, truly hope I'm wrong. But this is what's going to happen, right? As we approach those crucial votes, 12, 13, 14 of March, this is what will happen. The whips, whose job, of course, is to enforce party discipline and to get people into line, and they say and do all sorts of things to achieve their goals. Enoch Powell once said the whips are a necessary part of 20th century civilization, a bit like the sewers. But that's what they do. And this is what the whips will do. They'll say to the ERG and the DUP and some on the Labour Party too, you've got to understand something, folks. We've got this letter from Brussels giving us reassurance on the backstop. And unless you vote for the withdrawal agreement, for Mrs May's deal, then there will be a second referendum. So what then do you do? You're an MP, you know that a second referendum would be hugely divisive in this country and possibly very unpleasant too. Do you still stick to the line that this deal is so bad that you're prepared to vote against it? And you know something? Actually, I feel this is a surrender document. This is not a withdrawal agreement. We've given up on everything. They can do what the hell they like to us for the next few years. You would never sign up to this unless you were a nation that had been defeated in war. And so I have to say, and this may surprise some of you, I would rather take that risk than I would accept this deal. Dave is calling from Derby. Good morning, Dave.
Morning, Nigel. How are you doing?
How do you feel about that proposition, Dave? Just imagine yourself, you're a backbench Tory MP, you've put your head over the parapet and supported Brexit, you still believe in it, and the whips say, well, now listen, Dave, you fall into line, matey, otherwise there'll be an extension followed by a referendum. What do you do then?
Well, first, I'd never be a Conservative MP, full stop.
OK, fine. Very sensible, I'm sure.
But, no, I'd risk a second referendum. I mean, May's deal is nonsensical. Even if it does get passed in Parliament, Europe will never agree to it. Europe's deal was passed by all 27 member states almost immediately, and we rejected it because it would force a hard border across the Irish Sea from Northern Ireland to the rest of the UK.
Well, it would basically break up the United Kingdom. I mean, that's what that's the card that Barney had tried to play, isn't it?
Definitely, and I would risk a second referendum because the British people have seen how Europe has responded to us on one thing or another, and how we've responded to them, and a lot more truth has come out since between the actual referendum and now, and people actually know what will happen, etc. And as you have said before, Nigel, Britain cannot be seen to prosper outside the EU, otherwise it would all come crashing down. And that's what's happening anyway. As you keep saying, Italy needs a bailout. Germany's going to be going into recession. How many bailouts has Greece already had? Portugal, Spain, France, the rest of it.
Ireland. Don't forget Ireland.
As well.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time before it all, goes up in smoke.
Well, I do rather agree with that. So Dave, if it did, I mean, it sounds horrid, but if it did come to a second referendum, you really wouldn't be fearful at all from the sounds of it.
No, definitely not. Because we would prosper beforehand. We did before we joined the EU. You know, the world does not stop at Dover.
Would you almost... Do I get a sort of detect in your voice that you'd almost welcome a second referendum?
In a sense, yes, because I think it would be more than the 48-52. I think we'd be going into the 60s, high 70s to leave.
Do you? Do you really?
Definitely.
You really think that? Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Dave, thank you. Interesting. Then there are some people like Dave out there who think, actually, do you know what? They wouldn't listen to us last time. Let's smash them this time, and then they'll have to listen. But I wonder whether... even then, many, would Chuka Ramuna listen to the result of a second referendum? I wonder. We must ask him at some point. Lorcan is a new caller from Hillsborough in Northern Ireland. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am well, thank you. But I've sort of posed, Lorcan, as you can see, I've posed what I think the whips will try to do to get Mrs May's deal through. What impact do you think, if there was a second referendum, it would have in Ireland, in Northern Ireland?
I would worry about a second referendum because I think you would see the Remain vote increase in Northern Ireland, but that the UK population might vote leave again. I think that's a strong possibility due to kind of irresponsible reporting, to be honest.
So why do you think that the Remain vote would rise in Northern Ireland? Just because of all these threats, or...?
Yeah, because it's already happening, Nigel. It's already happening on the ground, you know. It's already happening on the ground here. You see big chemical companies, pharmaceutical companies taking up properties in the Republic of Ireland simply because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen. You already see it. I've had to apply for some kind of green card from my insurance company for crossing the border. I work across the border. I cross it maybe 3-4 times a week.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of people do a lot more. And I'm worried that if we have another vote, then yes, we would have to listen to the will of the people because everybody would be more informed and there would be no denying that we would have to go with that. However, the question I have for you is, if the solution for the border in Northern Ireland is so simple, be it technology, then why not just agree to the backstop? If you guys can sort it out so simply
because the backstop was designed to be a trap, Lorcan, and the Prime Minister, in my opinion, very stupidly signed up to it. The backstop is a means of keeping Britain trapped inside the customs union, and keeping Britain trapped inside the customs union is what Mr Barnier wanted from the start.
Until the solution is found for the Northern Irish border, isn't that correct?
Yes, but why do they ever have to fight? But why do they ever have to agree to anything? Why not just keep us trapped?
I don't understand your point of reasoning. We're going to leave the single market. If we're going to leave the single market, okay?
Yeah.
We're going to leave the customs union, and you guys the Brexiteers have a solution for the Northern Irish border. But it's so simple, technology, etc., etc. Then why not just set out to the time-bound backstop?
Because, Lorcan, that takes us to 2025. That's kind of what's being talked about. And some are saying that would be acceptable, but that means we're not going to be really free of this thing until 9 years after the referendum.
2025 is the maximum. If you can sort out the Irish border in a year, and then we can do it then.
Well, and equally, if you could sort out a free trade agreement, of course, you wouldn't then have any question of tariff.
Of course.
Yeah.
So why not just agree to it now?
Because how do we agree to something that legally we cannot get out of on our own? That's the difficulty.
Because if you read the definition of it, you can't get out of it on your own. But when Europe are satisfied that the solution is there for a frictionless border, which you profess to be able to do, then why not just sign up?
Yeah, not me, Lorcan. The European Union itself. I mean, they published their own report, on how the Northern Irish border would work with the Republic after Britain left the European Union, and they foresaw, technology, of course, playing its part, but they foresaw no difficulties at all, and yet suddenly it became the main aim of their negotiation. Look, I'm interested in your point. Do you think also a second referendum in Northern Ireland would be, divisive?
Yes, 100%.
Right.
And Nigel, I am not a nationalist, I'm not a unionist, I'm just an ordinary person who tries to earn money. I employ 600 people, both sides of the border. I just want to see everybody prosper, and this whole debacle is just polarising the country.
All right, so basically you want MPs to support Mrs May's deal, accept a time limit on the backstop and move on.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? If the solution to the Northern Ireland border is so simple, then why not do it?
Because we may understand it to be simple, but the EU may never accept it. I mean, that's the problem with all of this. We're putting ourselves so much in their hands. But Lorcan, I understand you made some very powerful arguments. Jack is calling. Jack's a new caller from Stockholm in Sweden. Hello, Jack.
Hi, Nigel. Absolute pleasure.
Good morning. Good morning. So do you work in Stockholm, or are you holidaying, or...?
No, I've moved over here. My partner's from Sweden, so
okay.
I made the move. But I'm self-employed, so I'm still kind of half in UK, really. So I don't work in Stockholm quite yet. Yeah.
So, what should we do? You know, if you were put up against the wall, Jack, and threatened with a good beating from the whips, you know, do you accept her deal with a bit of a change to the backstop, or are you prepared to risk a second referendum, Jack?
I am absolutely not prepared to accept her deal, and we should take the risk completely. If it goes to a second referendum and we vote again, I'm super confident we'd win once again with a bigger margin. Mm-hmm. But the point is, even if they Remain won, there would be such an uproar, it would cause a disruption in the government and it would take it down. If we accept Theresa May's deal, we're stuck. And it means that it's going to be harder to disrupt the government. We need a reform, as we've been saying before. So if we don't accept this and it gets extended, it's going to annoy people even more, and it's going to cause that disruption that we need. Not in that kind of any violence way, but it's going to allow other parties to get in that we need to vote for. And I'm so angry about how it's been done so far.
So Jack, take the risk. Hope we call their bluff and it does lead to a WTO exit, but if it is a second referendum, you're prepared to do that, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
All right,
absolutely.
No, really interesting. Jack, I thank you. I'm off to Brittany in France now. There's a big European dimension to this show today, isn't there? Teresa is a first-time caller from Brittany. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am okay. Well, I'm not really. I'm absolutely furious at what the Prime Minister and Ollie Robbins have done to us. But here we are. But I'm just saying, you know, given all the talk today is there could be compromise from the ERG, the DUP. But if you were faced with, if you're a Brexiteer, the worst case scenario is we're forced to do this again, to waste a whole load more time. Would it be worth that risk, Teresa?
Yes, it absolutely would, because I think this is a very dangerous time for democracy, because the elite in government are not listening to the wishes of the people. So we really do need to let the people in government know that this is what we want. We voted to leave by a majority. It was a small majority.
Well,
but
it wasn't that
majority.
small. Wasn't that small?
No, it was. It wouldn't have mattered if it was a one vote, Nigel. It was a majority, and that's what democracy is. So we need to leave because that's what the people voted for, and the people in government, the elite, they want us to remain, and that's what they're saying to the people. By any means that we can,
So would you, Teresa, would you accept Mrs May's deal, or would you vote against it, accepting there's a risk of a second referendum?
Yes, I would take that risk.
You take the risk, OK.
Of course, yes, because if we sign up to Theresa May's deal, it's not really leaving at all. You've got the worst of all possible worlds.
No, I couldn't. Teresa, I'm with you. And that's how I feel.
One more thing I'd like to say. Because there's no one in Parliament that's reflecting my views, the Brexiteers are all now seeming to go along with Theresa May's deal because they haven't got any confidence in the country. I really feel that we need a presence of a party like the Brexit Party you are forming to stand in the European elections. Yeah. And you said last week on your show that it's very difficult to start a party.
Yes.
Well, Macron did it in France. He was an unelected... I know we had a completely different system over here, but he was an unelected member of Hollande's government. He broke away. He had no party as such, and he was elected as president.
He was, Teresa, but we don't have those kind of presidential elections. I mean, you could argue the same about Trump, couldn't you? You know, Trump came along as a businessman, won a series of open primaries and became president. You can't quite do that here, can you?
No, I realise that it's a different system in the UK, but if you could find some MPs that would agree with you, so they would stand for election under your Brexit party, then at least we, Brexiteers, would have a say in the government, because at the moment we have none.
No, well, I think that's a view, Teresa, held by very many people, and I thank you for your call and your passion this Sunday morning. This is the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's now 11:16.
LBC.
Did you know at QuickFit you can book your MOT and service together, saving you time and money? And with over 500 MOT and service centres nationwide, we can fit you in at a time and date that suits you. Head over to quickfit.com to book online, or visit your local QuickFit today and drive away happy.
Life is full of so many things. Happy things, sad things, and surprising things. You've got commuting things, typing things, planning things. With all these things, it's easy to forget you need to eat something. So open the Uber Eats app to order a sushi thing, a burger thing, or perhaps that new thing. Sit for a minute and enjoy that thing, and then get back to all your other things. Uber Eats. Get food delivered wherever life takes you. Download the app today. Available at selected times in selected locations.
Everyone knows that the best deals don't hang around for long, so don't miss Gemca Toyota's 19-plate event on now. For a limited time only, enjoy up to 10% off the list price on selected new Toyotas. 0% finance now on key models. And be one of the first to test drive the all-new Corolla and all-new RAV4. The clock is ticking, so head straight to your nearest Gemca Toyota centre today, with branches in Bromley, Croydon, Sidcup, Edgware, Enfield, Bracknell and Reading. Terms and conditions apply.
It's a kind of magic.
It's the last few days of the Furniture Village sale. With amazing final reductions on hundreds of sofas, dining and beds, including all our famous brands. So come in store or go online now. But hurry, it's your last chance to save in the Furniture Village sale.
Lanes 2 and 3 have reopened between the junction 1 and the roundabout northbound slow from southbound.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Stay safe. Stay back. Search Highways England for more information.
So much confusion. This deal or that deal. Why can't renewal be simple? It does sound like a bargain. What if you're being ripped off? Confused.com guaranteed to beat your renewal quote, helping you rise above the clamour of comparison sites. It's that easy. Beat your renewal quote guarantee, or you'll get the difference in an extra £20. Don't be confused. Be confused.com. Full T's and C's online. Single annual policies only.
John's just napping after a successful NEOP. But when he wakes up again, it won't be to an unexpected bill. Because unlike some insurers, Vitality Health Insurance includes our full cover promise as standard. So we'll pay for all his inpatient and day patient consultant fees in full. Isn't that right, John? We'll come back later.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. Your consultant must be recognised by us and the condition and treatment eligible under your plan. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
That's what the whips are going to do. They're going to say to these Tory ERG types, right, you vote for Mrs May's deal, or there'll be an extension followed by a referendum, a second referendum. Would people be prepared to take that risk? I'm afraid I am prepared to take that risk. I think even before we got to a second referendum, we'd have a European election to fight, and that might just surprise everybody in terms of what it produces. Another senseless death. Stabbing in London, this time a 17-year-old girl, Jodie Chesney and Harold Hill, in a park, a completely unprovoked attack, and a young girl not involved with gangs, not involved with the sale of drugs or anything like that. And I think because of those factors, people genuinely shocked by this. Perhaps also worth mentioning that a 17-year-old boy has also been stabbed to death in Greater Manchester. There are a lot of us who take the view that ending stop and search has made this situation worse. A lot of us that take the view that the Mayor of London, frankly, Sadiq Khan, has just not done enough about this, or even shown enough concern about this. But, you know, when you see all these things on the news headline, national news headlines everywhere, you do rather get the impression that this problem is confined to London, and it is not. You know, there are knife crime epidemics in the West Midlands and many other major British cities, even a gun crime problem breaking out in one or two of our northern cities. And if we ever get Brexit properly done and dusted and out of the way, I will take this Sunday show out to some of the other cities in this country to look at just the sheer extent of this problem. It's awful what is happening in London, but it is not confined to London. Ashley in Cannock texts me and says, I'm 100% leave and I want WTO terms, but I've got a feeling that a second referendum is imminent. If it does go to a referendum, we all know Remain will be on the ballot paper. Disgraceful, I know. I don't think for 1 minute we'll get a different result from the first one. Well, the thing is, Ashley, would the politicians accept it? I just, would Chucker and Moona really accept, would Alistair Campbell really accept a second referendum? I guess the answer to that is it would depend on the margin, wouldn't it? But I do share the view that many of you have expressed this morning, that a second referendum would be another big win for Leave. Philip texts me and says, the problem with another referendum is that Parliament would fix it to get the right result. The real issue is Mrs May was negotiating for the European Union. Well, Philip, they're deeply cynical. They can try and fix the question, but ultimately, of course, the Electoral Commission have to approve whatever question they come up with. But I still think they'd be in for a shock. But would it be worth the risk? Or should we just say, look, I tell you what, this is shocking, but we can at least bank leaving the European Union Treaty on March the 29th at 11 p.m, and we've left the European Union. If only it was that simple. Graham is calling from Worcester. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Top man, how are you?
Good morning. I'm all right, thank you.
I should be joining you on your march, by the way.
Yes, that was announced whilst I was in America. It's a Leave Means Leave march, which will be leaving Sunderland on the 16th of March and marching to London. And the newspapers all think it's really funny, Graham, because, is Nigel really going to march all 220 miles? Well, I'll be there at the beginning, I'll be there at the end, but not perhaps for all of it. Yeah. Anyway, that should be, hopefully, quite a symbolic thing. Graham, are you a Brexiteer?
I am a Brexiteer, and what a stitch-up we've had. What a stitch-up.
Shocking, isn't it?
Disgusting. We had a Remainer from the start who didn't listen to either of the good guys that she had by her side. I think David Davis should have had the top job from day one, personally.
Uh-huh.
We should never have had a Remainer in charge of Brexit because her heart wasn't in it, and she consistently stealthily tried to keep us in. And it was designed within this whole situation, this massive 585-page document, with the only option at the end of it, my deal or no deal. It's just absolutely appalling. We ticked the box, leave or remain. That was the options that we had, and we ticked to leave, and that's where we should be going.
Well, Graham, I share your disgust at the whole process. I also share your feelings about the sheer duplicity of this Prime Minister, which I think has been quite extraordinary. Say one thing and do another, again, and again. But would you, Graham, if you were in those lobbies in a couple of weeks' time, and you had to think really hard about this, would you be prepared to take the risk of voting this down if a second referendum...
Yeah, absolutely I would.
Would you?
This deal is a rubbish deal. And there's been a recent poll online on Facebook by Martin Lewis, and Leave is just torn away. It's just absolutely torn away from Remain. Because we've had all this 2.5 years of ridiculous no flying, no food, no water. People are just sick to death of this ridiculous stuff that comes out from the scaremongering media. They just laugh at it now, and I think they've shot themselves in the foot with this, to be honest.
There is a danger, though, Graham, isn't there? I mean, do you remember the film Charge of the Light Brigade?
I do. And
they go through the valley, and the young trooper says to his commanding officer, "Shall we go again, sir?" I remember that in the film. Isn't there? And I'm talking against myself here. I know I am. But isn't there a danger that some people out there who perhaps are not as politically motivated, Graham, as you and I are on this issue, isn't there a danger that they kind of think that if Brexiteers were seen by opposing Mrs May's deal to perhaps lead to a second referendum, that we are a little bit like the Charge of a Light Brigade and happy to go again?
Well, at the end of the day, Nigel, I just think this deal stinks. And this whole Irish thing's a red herring as far as I'm concerned. There's no reason why you can't have bonded warehouses set back way beyond both borders and have sealed transportation between the two. Then we used to run a thing years ago, TIR. Do you remember the lorries at TIR?
Yes.
So why can't we go back to that? It's just, as you've said many times, different currency, different tax regime.
Absolutely. I mean, if you need to have a hard border, because there are economic differences between the Republic and the North, you should have a hard border there right now, given, as you say, currency, tax, excise duties. I could go on. Graham, I thank you for your call. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I'm getting I'm getting a lot of you calling today who are Brexiteers who actually hate this deal so much you are prepared to risk going all the way to a second referendum. I'm quite surprised how many appear to be thinking that. BB texts me, a second referendum would be the lesser of two evils. I just wonder, though, what the division in the country would be. Eric is a new caller from Enfield in North London. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Nigel. Thank you for taking the call.
Not a bit. So what's your perspective on this?
Well, I've been following your speeches in the European Parliament for many, many years now, long before Brexit became Brexit. And I must respectfully say I completely disagree with the whole premise of Brexit.
Okay.
The problem is you promised a greater and better future for what is a strong economy within the European Union, pretending that it can live on and be better and stronger outside of it.
Well, above all, Eric, the referendum, economics was a factor in the referendum, but the referendum wasn't about whether I think we could be better off or somebody else thinks we could be worse off. The referendum was about leaving political union and becoming independent, Eric. That was the point of it.
Yes, correct. But you're pretending that becoming independent politically as well is going to make the UK better.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I believe so. Yes, totally.
But the UK is one tiny piece in the whole world.
No, we're not.
You got the US on one side, you got China on the other side, you got Russia, which is reasserting its power. What is the UK going to be in the big picture?
Well, I tell you what it is, Eric. And not only is it about the fifth biggest economy in the world, but the second, or maybe even arguably first biggest financial services centre in the world. It is also a linchpin in terms of international security, in terms of defence and NATO. It has a remarkable relationship with over 50 countries in the Commonwealth, with a population of about 2.4 billion people. It speaks the world's language. I mean, Eric, I could go on with a list of reasons that say, we are more than big enough. We are more than big enough to govern ourselves.
Here's my one question.
Yes.
Which one of these is going to be better when it's outside of the European Union? Because all of the things you've mentioned are as a result of being an important part of the political bloc, which is Europe.
No. Come on. I mean, our military and intelligence ability has nothing to do with being members of the EU.
No, it has to do with being part of NATO, and NATO has to do with being part of a strong Europe. That's the whole interest of having NATO.
I'm not sure for much longer, Eric, actually. I think that the plans for a European army may well destroy NATO.
I really hope the European army starts building soon. But my argument...
So do you want the Americans out, Eric?
No, not at all. And don't get me wrong. I fully support the idea of having an independent UK if that's what we truly want, what I believe. Okay. And where I think that the real shame is what has been sold in the referendum, and I'm not going to try to refight it again, but what has been sold in the referendum is a dream that is not viable. It's not on the menu. So what you currently are faced with is a rubbish referendum, which is going to end up with an even more divided country. Would you, Eric, and we're running out of time, but would you, Eric, do the referendum again then? What I would do is I would set some minimums for a referendum. I'll give you one example, which is worth looking up. Swedish nuclear power. It was a huge referendum back in the 70s or 80s with a huge turnout, and the result was crystal clear. It was to get rid of all nuclear power in Sweden. You had like 80% voting in favour of it. Guess what? It was a rubbish idea, and guess where we are?
Well, Eric, but that's an argument for European Union. That's an argument to have unelected commissioners like Barnier and Juncker running our lives, because democracy can be inconvenient and democracy can get things wrong. And maybe, just maybe, Eric, and thank you for your call, it can. But it is still the least worst system of government, and I think we should respect it. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show. It is now 11:31 and time for the news headlines with Philip Chryssikos.
The government is promising it is focused on tackling knife crime after two teenagers were stabbed to death in separate attacks within 24 hours. A 17-year-old girl was killed in East London on Friday night. A boy of the same age was attacked in Greater Manchester yesterday evening. The Jewish Labour movement says it's considering ending its 99-year affiliation with the Labour Party over alleged failures to deal with anti-Semitism. In response, Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell admits Labour has a problem, but adds the party isn't institutionally anti-Semitic. anti-Semitic. SpaceX's new crew capsule has arrived at the International Space Station, completing its second milestone in just over a day. It's only carrying a life-size dummy, but the plan is to launch astronauts into space from American soil. LBC weather, wet and windy with those winds increasing from the southwest of England. That's once Storm Freya arrives this afternoon, a high of 13 degrees.
This is LBC.
Sky Sports F1 is the home of live and exclusive F1, and there's never been a better time to join. For just £10 extra a month, watch every practice, qualifying and race live and in stunning HD.
Oh, that was magic, man.
Just £10 extra a month, an incredible price guaranteed for 2 years.
Oh, this is amazing.
Our best ever offer ends April 1st. Search Sky Sports F1. Sky Entertainment, £22 a month, required with new 18-month contract. Set up fee up to £20. Further terms apply.
Everyone knows that the best deals don't hang around for long, so don't miss Jemka Toyota's 19-plate event on now. For a limited time only, enjoy up to 10% off the list price on selected new Toyotas, 0% finance now on key models, and be one of the first to test drive the all-new Corolla and all-new RAV4. The clock is ticking, so head straight to your nearest Jemka Toyota centre today, with branches in Bromley, Croydon, Sidcup, Edgware, Enfield, Bracknell and Reading. Terms and conditions apply.
Isn't it reassuring to know that when you're looking to remortgage, you don't have to rejig your routine? That's why at Barclays we offer evening and weekend appointments. It means you get to talk to us when it works best for you. Morning or evening. We're refreshing and reshaping the way we do mortgages to make them easier. Search Barclays Mortgages. Let's go forward. T's and C's apply.
Drivers, here's a little number for you. Do you know when your MOT is due? Don't worry if not. Just text your reg to 83333 and we'll ping the date straight back. With 500 centres nationwide, we can fit you in at a time and date that suits you. Just book online or visit your local Quick Fit today and drive away happy.
Lanes 2 and 3 have reopened between the junction 1 and the roundabout northbound slow from southbound.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Stay safe. Stay back. Search Highways England for more information.
Hello, hi. I bought this gym membership as I wanted to get fit, but I just read that dad bods are in right now, so I think I might just stick with what I've got. So, could I get my money, please?
Money for a gym membership you don't use? Not so smarty. Money off your next phone bill for mobile data you don't use? Smarty. Plans starting from £6.25 per month for 1 gig of data and unlimited calls and texts. Call exclusions apply. Join today at smarty.co.uk. Simple, honest, mobile.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
One other really interesting thing that I came across in Washington, D.C., and it was in Donald Trump's speech yesterday, which was a 2-hour speech that he gave to this big CPAC conservative conference. But he made the point that unless American universities start teaching, with genuinely allowing all sides of an argument and allowing free speech, that he will do what he can to stop public funding for those universities. And I have to say, that's something I've been calling out for in this country. Really important that young people are taught critical thinking. Really important they're taught. Here's a problem, here are 2 solutions, they're both valid, and you make your own mind up what you think, rather than what I think's going on in this country, and clearly he thinks is happening in America, way too much indoctrination. The creation of safe spaces, speakers like Jermaine Greer being banned from going to universities. We really got to make sure that our academic institutions are playing fair. Thought that was a very, very interesting moment yesterday. Back to this great dilemma. Would you, if you're a Brexiteer, would you still vote down Mrs May's deal if you thought it could lead to a second referendum? Kez says, I voted Remain. If we had another referendum, I'm afraid I wouldn't vote again. Disappointed and disgusted at the politics. Well, Kez, let me tell you something. There are people on both sides of the argument that feel that way, really very unhappy. Marcus says, I believe it would be dangerous to rely on a second referendum. It would be engineered to be a choice between Remain and the PM's deal. Real leaving might not be a choice. Well, I tell you what, I tell you what, Marcus, if that's what it was, I think there'd be a mass boycott, frankly, of that referendum, and it wouldn't get enough votes to even be legitimate. Those of you that are worried about what this question may be, I do understand that, because, yeah, as we know, the majority of our MPs do not want Brexit. Barry is a new caller from Blackheath. Good morning, Barry.
Oh, good morning, Nigel. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. So, what about a second referendum, Barry? It's a shocking idea, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I believe so. You know, we made our choice the first time round. But what I would like to say is that if there was a second referendum and the outcome was Remain, why should we accept that decision?
Oh, well, I think, Barry, if it was to be Remain, we'd just say best of three, wouldn't we?
Yeah, that'd be, wouldn't it? I mean, you don't get two football teams. They play a match and the score's 1-0, and the losing team goes, well, we want a rematch. You only won by one goal.
No, I mean, in that case, the referee's decision is final, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Barry, listen, there are all sorts of problems with a second referendum, not least of which is you'd be having a second referendum before the first one had even been implemented. I mean, I don't mind the idea that in 20 years' time or 10 years' time or whatever it is, we could revisit this, although I don't think the EU will be there then. But no, you're right to raise this. I think what a second referendum would do is damage people's faith in the entire system of governance in this country.
Yeah, I think that's been pretty much damaged over the past 2.5 years now.
And Barry, if there was a second referendum, what should the question be in your view?
Well, ideally, I'd like to see us leave on WTO rules. Just say no deal and that's it. But the thing that concerns me about that is who would be negotiating the trade deals, because Theresa May couldn't manage to negotiate one in 2.5 years.
Well, and that's why, as we've teased out in the last sort of hour and a half or so, that one of the terms upon which the ERG group would support Mrs May's deal with a change to the backstop, but the other thing they want is the removal of the Prime Minister and the replacement of her with somebody who might actually believe in Brexit, Barry. That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
That'd be very nice.
You never know. It may happen. We'll see. Barry, thank you. Mark in Sunderland texts, Nigel, I think that if you look at the bigger picture, we need a second referendum. Then this could open up the door for the SNP to have another indie ref, as they could argue we did a second referendum, so why shouldn't Scotland? Well, there is a great danger of that, Mark, of course, that you could finish up with never-endums, and that wouldn't be a good thing. But, Mark, the trouble is, I know what the whips are going to do. That's what they're going to say. You support this deal, or we're headed towards a second referendum, and it makes the decision that MPs face very, very difficult. I do understand that. Darren is calling from Liverpool. Good morning, Darren.
Hello, Nigel.
Good morning.
Good morning. It took me quite a while getting on to speak to yourself. I was just, I could spend all day talking to you, to be quite honest. But what I was thinking is, it's only the last 4 or 5 years I've really took a big interest in politics, obviously. With what was going on in America, started it all off for myself, like between the Dems and the Republicans and whatnot. But listen, Nigel, we've got to honestly say, we don't live in a democracy no more. If this goes to a second referendum, then that is the end of a democracy, as we are ruled by a plutocracy.
Darren, I don't disagree with that for a moment.
I think it's absolutely shocking what's going on in this country. We should not even be debating a second referendum. The people voted out. I'd love to know where the biggest majority of Remain votes come from. I'm presuming the southeast of the country.
Oh, well, it's London, of course. It is.
We all know why it happens, because that's where most of the wealth in this country is, the civil servants, etc. So it's going to affect the southeast more than anything if we do have a Brexit. And anyone who believes that the European Union is going to stay afloat has really not been keeping their eye on the banking system since 2008. It's all going to come down like a house of cards. Unbelievably, when it comes down.
Darren, I think that we're seeing the Eurozone heading back into recession. There are wholly unresolved banking issues in Italy. Even serious banking issues in Germany, actually, which doesn't get talked about a huge amount. No, I agree with
Germany is.
I agree with you, Darren.
Look into Deutsche Bank.
I know, but Darren, the reason we're debating a second referendum, and I don't want a second referendum, but the reason we're
because the plutocracy will not accept the democratic vote.
Well,
that is why
yes.
we are being bluffed. The people of this country are being bluffed. They are being absolutely, a Liverpool word, they're being blagged. Yeah? They are being absolutely blagged.
So what do we do, Darren? What do we do?
Keep the plutocracy in power. What do we do? Second referendum. Everybody in this country needs to march on London, I believe, in a very peaceful manner, of course.
Yes.
And basically respect what the people have voted in this country, because it is absolutely shocking. And I'm thinking of my children's future. I've already got one working in China, which I've been told for many decades, I'll say 2, I'm in my 40s, was a communist place, and you must never go there. And, well, I've been there. It's a fantastic place.
Interesting.
You know, I've got one daughter out of the country. I've got 2 to get out. Doesn't sound very good. And I should imagine I'll take a bit of flack for that. But I don't like being ruled by a plutocracy.
Darren, I've done my best to try and break that power at the centre of this country. I know,
Nigel.
I think we're on our way. They're not going to win, Darren. The genie's out of the bottle. Brexit is going to happen. It's just a question of when.
Let's not try to push a narrative, Nigel, of should we have a second referendum. We should not be even discussing a second referendum.
All right.
That totally goes against the democracy.
All right. No, Darren, listen, thank you. Very passionate call there from Darren. Thank you. I'm going to Switzerland to speak to Christian. There's a lot of European countries this morning. Hi, Christian.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
Good morning. Well, I mean, like a lot of people, I think on both sides of this argument, somewhat tearing my hair out, Christian, really.
Yeah. But I think this topic is very interesting for third side countries like Switzerland, Norway, and also for the members, because you probably noticed in Italy and other countries.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of...
And of course, Christian, you live in a country. You live in a country with a great referendum tradition, of course.
Yeah, that's the point. That's why I wanted to call.
Yeah.
Because if you want my option, I would never have a second vote. It would be leave without deal. That's my position. For a second referendum, I would prefer just to vote on the option of the Brexit, not yes or not, because British people already say leave, and that's the point. And I agree with the other people who called and say this. But there should be another option, because I think that those who support a second referendum, they want to push in order to split the vote of the leavers.
Yeah.
And in Switzerland, we have an option for this situation, because there is something that is called a counter proposal.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you can vote yes or not, but in case the object of the referendum passes, you can also give your indication if you want it. This, in our case, would be the leave without deal, or the deal we have. Or better, you have. Sorry.
Yes. So Christian. Yeah. If the choice in a second referendum was on how we leave, that would be somewhat less objectionable, I think. Christian, thank you. And of course, they do have referendums in Switzerland. And you know what happens in Switzerland with referendums? Whether the government likes the result or not, they actually respect them. How about that? Now, coming up, we are going to talk to the landlord of the best pub in Britain, and we are not going to be discussing second referendums or Brexit or open borders. We're going to talk about how has he turned a derelict building into the best pub in the country. That in a moment. For now, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it is 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
A 17-year-old boy has died after he was stabbed around Greater Manchester. This after a 17-year-old Girl Scout was found stabbed to death on Friday night in London. What's causing this knife crime epidemic?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Protecting your business from cybercrime is a growing priority, yet understanding how to stay ahead of potential threats is challenging. Whether you're a startup or an established business, BT is here to help. With a wide range of security-embedded products and services built especially for businesses. Find out more and enter to win a Microsoft Surface Pro tablet and Sony wireless headphones at lbc.co.uk. BT, helping business relationships stay on track.
What will happen when the UK leaves the EU? Do I need to renew my passport earlier than planned?
I'm an EU citizen living in the UK. How will this affect me?
Will mobile roaming change?
How will exporting my goods be affected?
You might also have questions about how leaving the EU on the 29th of March will affect you. Find guidance and up-to-date information at gov.uk/EU exit.
Stylish and effortlessly cool, this model is a real head-turner. With 16-inch alloys and a wireless keycard, a new Renault Clio from Renault Retail Group is this season's must-have accessory. And at just £159 a month and £159 deposit on 0% APR finance, the price tag is pretty eye-catching too. Find your nearest dealer at renaultretail.co.uk. Deposit 159, then 48 monthly payments of 159. Final payment 4511.
Lanes 2 and 3 have reopened between the junction 1 and the roundabout northbound slow from southbound.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Stay safe. Stay back. Search Highways England for more information.
At every stage of our lives, we've had help with certain things, like learning the recorder, mastering technology.
Even my passwords need passwords.
So, if you're over 60, ask about getting extra help at home or financing a move to a care home. Independent Age, the older people's charity, is here to help. For your free guide about care, call 0800 319 6789 or visit independentage.org.
Some things are never coming back, like avocado bathrooms, dinosaurs, and fingers crossed, the mullet. But a lost credit card, they often turn up. Thankfully, with a simple tap, the NatWest app lets you lock your card if you misplace it and unlock it if you find it. We're always thinking of new ways to make it easier to control your banking. Search NatWest Easier Banking. NatWest, we are what we do.
MasterCard credit cards only. App eligibility criteria applies.
Everyone knows that the best deals don't hang around for long, so don't miss Jemka Toyota's 19-plate event on now. For a limited time only, enjoy up to 10% off the list price on selected new Toyotas. 0% finance now on key models. And be one of the first to test drive the all-new Corolla and all-new RAV4. The clock is ticking, so head straight to your nearest Jemka Toyota centre today, with branches in Bromley, Croydon, Sidcup, Edgware, Enfield, Bracknell and Reading. Terms and conditions apply.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
On a Sunday, the pub's open at 12 and we will be visiting the Wonston Arms down near Winchester in Hampshire before the end of the show. Just going to keep this going for a couple more calls. Roger is a first-time caller from Farnborough in Hampshire. Roger, how would you feel if you were faced with the choice that you either vote for Mrs May's deal or there could be a second referendum?
I wouldn't be happy at all. The thing is, what I think should happen is, I know you're against it, and we should have an extension. And what we should do then is have a general referendum. Not a general referendum.
A general election, do you mean, yeah?
Yeah, a general election. You know, we've got people who actually threaten everybody. We've had people leave parties.
Yep.
Well, let's put it to the test. Let's put the politicians to the test and say, call a general election and see what happens. People like yourself then could start again and actually put yourself forward.
Do you think a snap general election would solve anything, Roger?
At the moment, possibly yes, but nothing's being solved at the moment, is it?
No, that is true, but I'm not sure that a general election would sort much out in the short term.
It would sort out all the MPs that are sitting there on the actual fence and it would sort people out like Anna Soubry and Chuck Una. I actually thought Chuck Una was going to be the next Labour man, but you know what I mean? Now he's gone, no. But I'm not a Labour person, but that's how I look at it. Let's get a general election in, get rid of all the people that the people don't want.
Well, Roger, it's very tempting to think we can get rid of the people that aren't wanted, and I do think, actually, that Chuka-Ramuna and the TIG group would almost certainly get wiped out, and they wouldn't exist. But I just wonder whether there'd be much change. Maybe Mrs May would get a slightly bigger majority, although would she be allowed to stand? Because, Roger, she did promise she wouldn't stand again, didn't she?
She did, yes, and so she shouldn't be standing. But the point is, it gives everybody a chance to do it again.
Roger, thank you. I don't think he's right. I don't think we solve anything, but hey. Now, it's quite a shocking figure, but 25% of pubs in this country have closed since 2001. And those that know me will know that I quite like pubs. I quite like a pint. I've been photographed once or twice in some of them. And I do think pubs provide a very important part of our national life. I've always thought every pub's a parliament. It's where we go in to discuss the local councillor, what's the vicar like, or whatever else it may be. And maybe, I don't know, maybe pubs sometimes today even discuss Brexit. But so I'm thrilled that a friend of mine, someone I know and I fish with, has just won Pub of the Year. How's he managed? The question is, how's he managed to turn a derelict building around in a short space of time to being Pub of the Year? And joining me from the Wanstead Arms in Hampshire is my friend Matt Todd. Matt, good morning.
Morning, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. Congratulations on winning Pub of the Year for the Wanstead Arms. Now, just give people the story quickly, Matt. When you took this place over, it was literally derelict, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a closed up. It was another casualty of the 2008-2009 recession, really. The guys who were running it were good guys, but they just couldn't recover after that big hit, and it just slowly went down to the point where, sadly, you know, they were tempted by an offer from a property developer to build it into houses and flats. So I didn't want that. I didn't want to lose my local boozer. I didn't want to lose where I went to drink. And I thought, well, if I don't do it, no one else is. So I went and bought it. And
it's a hell of a risk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. There's no denying that. But sometimes there's something that goes, you know, as you know, there's something in your head. You need to get it done to do the right thing for yourself and possibly for the wider community, which this was. And I did it, and I said to the guys, if I'm going to do this, I want you all behind me. I want you to come and roll your sleeves up. We've got to get this place turned around and looking spanking, and over 4 years we've done that to the point.
And this was, Matt,
this week.
This was a community effort as well, wasn't it?
It was, 100%. I think that's the very essence of why it's worked, in that the people have all felt, financially it's obviously my pub, but they've all felt and believed that they could turn this around themselves. People come and work in the pub with me. They've done all the renovation, Nigel, as you know.
Yep.
And, you know, it's come a long way. It's a really nice place to come and hang out and have a Sunday afternoon beer, which will be happening in about 5 minutes.
I know, but I wish I could join you today, but I can't. But I will very soon, I promise you. And Matt, the other fascination for me is pubs seem to be more like restaurants these days than pubs, but yours is different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is different. I do have this phrase in my head. When you go out to eat, you never meet anybody. We don't do food. We have a couple of pop-up retailers who come from like Portsmouth and the bigger cities out to the country, but we don't have food in here, and so there is no distraction. You come in through that door, you come in for a pint, a drink, and a good old chat.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. And tell me, Matt, without getting into any details, does Brexit get discussed much these days?
It has done. It certainly has done, but we've got a little box and we leave the B word at the front door, to be honest, Nigel.
Very good. And what is it? Is it beer? Is it gin? Is it wine? What's the in craze for drinking? Or is it soft drinks? What is it?
I think it's all. I think we need to have something for everybody. We've certainly got, obviously, fantastic ale, given that that's the campaign for real ale have voted us foremost as one of the best places, or the best place to have ale. But gin, we've got 180 gins in here, and it's important to get ladies into this place. You know, half the population weren't really using it because, you know, it was an old school men's boozer.
Yes.
And gin is incredibly popular, so we've done really well with that as well.
So you've got men and women coming in numbers. But what is it, Matt? What is it, Matt Todd? Why is your pub working and you winning Pub of the Year when within miles of you there are pubs closing? What are you getting right that they're getting wrong?
Well, I don't think there's many of these around now, Nigel. There's, you know, we're surrounded by these restaurants that serve alcohol. You know, there's certainly in the countryside, there are really not many old-school boozers like I used to go to my dad with in the 70s, where I sat in the corner with a packet of crisps and I did my homework after school. And, you know, grown-ups mixed in a convivial, kind of decent way. So, you know, we are obviously one of the few. That doesn't make us the best, but people have certainly found us from a long distance to come and find out what's happening in this little place. It's a tiny little pub, as you know.
Well, fantastic, Matt. And many, many congratulations. And I will come and see you before long, but not today. Thank you. Well, what a great story, isn't it? What a great story that there's a closed-down pub in a village in Hampshire. Guy takes a financial risk and buys it. The whole community get together. They do it up. They start to use it. And isn't it interesting that they don't sell food. They don't have pipe music in the background. It's a place where people go and have a drink, alcoholic or otherwise, and they can actually have a proper chat and debate. It sounds pretty good to me. Back to what on earth do we do if we're faced with this choice? Mrs May's deal or the risk of a second referendum? Well, I'm afraid Mrs May's deal's so awful, I'm prepared to take that risk. I wonder what William, a new caller from Belfast, makes of that proposition. Good morning, William.
Good morning, Mr. Farage. How are you?
Well, apart from the Prime Minister, I'm fine, William. But
yes, well, I'm very sorry. I'm so like you.
Right.
The whole question of another referendum, have you said it yourself many times, what is the point? Because even if there is another referendum with an even bigger majority, the Remoaners in Parliament will still refuse to pass because they do not want to leave. So a second referendum will be pointless.
If it was, William, say, 2/3 a third, if it was 2/3 leave and a third remain, maybe then they'd listen.
Well, but they haven't listened the first time, so why would they listen a second time? I mean, the Remoaner MPs in Parliament want to stay in the EU no matter what. I mean, they've already shown, even with the referendum, first of all, they didn't want it even in the first place. And then when they did have the referendum, they don't want to respect the result. So I believe, actually, I think it was Roger there was saying about another general election.
He was, yes.
So, I mean, the point I would make there is that a lot of people made a mistake in the general election this previous year, it's now over a year ago, including yourself, because people all believed that the Tories and the Labour would abide by their word and their campaigns, that they would honour the referendum, but they didn't, and because of that, people voted for Labour and Tory rather than vote for UKIP. So, I mean, too many people...
Well, I tell you what, William, I'm out of time, sadly, but the problem is to get new parties or newish parties to, in a British general election, get big enough numbers of votes to break through the threshold and win seats is difficult. My sense, folks, is a general election, you wouldn't see as much change as you probably think you would, although I do think the TIGs wouldn't get back. Well, it's been another week of furious Brexit debate. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock. At 3 this afternoon, it's Ian Payne. But up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, Labour MPs have criticised their own front bench during a debate in the Commons over the prescribing of terrorist group Hezbollah. And Labour peer, Lord Faulkner, has been drafted in to deal with the anti-Semitism crisis in the party. Fish rots from its head. Is Labour's racism problem rooted in its leadership? But first up, a 17-year-old boy has died after he was stabbed yesterday evening around Greater Manchester. This after a 17-year-old Girl Scout, Jodie Chesney, was found stabbed to death in an apparently random attack in East London on Friday night.